How is everyone? I have familiar faces here. Some of them you know me, some of them maybe in the future. My name is Kholoud Al-Qubbaj. I teach diversity at SU since 2000. And today, because I'm from the Middle East, let's go to the Middle East, the Arab world, see some kind of cross-cultural experiences you need to be aware of. How many of you can pronounce my name? Kholoud. See, it's hard. That's why it's complicated. What do you know about the Middle East? Where is the Middle East? Raise your hand. I've been tied, I have a leash here, so I have to be polite. I can't move anywhere. So, what do you know about the Middle East? Yes? Oil. Heat. You've been in Iraq or someplace, some kind of thing. What else? That's it? Okay, what are Israel?
Has a rich religious history.
Rich in history. I love that. Everything. Architecture, Jews, Muslims. Yes, I love that one. When you say the Middle East, that's, if you look at the screen, sometimes we confuse between being an Arab and being a Middle Easterner in the United States. We have a lot of stereotypes about the Middle Easterners. We lump the Middle East with Arabs. But if you look at the Middle East can be those Arab countries. Let me expand that. The Middle East, if you look at the screen, the Middle East could be the Arabs, 22 countries, could be part of Asia, Afghanis, Pakistanis, Iranis, Turkish, could be Europe, the Greeks, the Italians, could be North Africa. So when we talk about the Middle East, when somebody wants me to talk about the Middle East, I panic. What's in the Middle East you need to understand? So Middle East could be part of Asia, Europe, North Africa, and the Arabs. You have to understand the diversity of the Middle East. That's why we have this definition for the Middle East. The Middle East is a wide geographic designation that include many people that could be Muslim, Arab, European, Asian, the diversity. These are the Arabs. I'm a Palestinian. I came from the Holy Land, or the Holy Land. If you look at the Arabs, 22 countries. We mix them with the Middle Easterners. You have to differentiate between being Arab in the United States and being Middle Easterners in the United States. Two different categories. These are the Arabs, part of the Middle East, but not all Middle Easterners are Arabs. And why we call them Arabs, these 22 countries? Why we call them Arabs? Because of the Arabic language, that these 22 countries, the formal language is Arabic. They have dialects, and they have another racial or ethnic groups languages. But these 22 countries, which is my background, I'm Arab American, you have to understand the diversity of these countries. That's why we call them Arabs, because of the language. You have to differentiate between Arabs and Middle Easterners. Look at what's the Middle East, what's the Arab word. Two huge differences. Am I right? Now, for the Arabs, you have to understand the diversity of Arabs. They're coming from different backgrounds, especially in the United States, different countries, different histories, different Arabic dialects, Egyptian dialects, Syrian dialects, Palestinian dialects, Jordanian dialects, and so forth. You have to understand that those immigrants here, if you want to contact with them, they're coming from different backgrounds. Could be coming from cities, towns, deserts. Apparently you've been that part because you mentioned the heat. You didn't mention the Mediterranean, the beautiful place like California. You have to understand the gender rules. That's very touchy subject for Arabs. You have to understand someone came to the United States in the 30s, like my uncle, will immigrate in the early 90s to the US. See the difference between acculturation and assimilation. My uncle is assimilated fully. Myself acculturated. What's the difference between assimilation and acculturation if you want to interact with Arabs in the United States or Middle Easterners? Assimilation means who took my class, diversity course? What's assimilation?
Adapting the new culture as their own.
Yes, so you don't feel the difference between the immigrants and the mainstream Americans. While acculturation, the immigrants or the Arabs, when they immigrate, or the Middle Eastern, retain part of their heritage. Could be a religion, could be a lifestyle, could be a language. That's not fully assimilation, that's acculturation. Two faces of Arabs when you want to interact: assimilated Arab or Middle Eastern, or acculturated Arab or Middle Eastern, are two different faces, am I right? And you have to understand the diversity in their culture, in clothing, costumes in Egypt different than Syria, different than Jordan, and so forth. The music, Iraqi music, Syrian music, Lebanese music, Jordanian music, food, dance, and so forth. So you have to understand when you want to interact with somebody from the Middle East, where are they from? Could be an Asian, could be European, could be North African, could be Arab. Also, you have to understand, if you're interacting with Arab, like my background, the diversity of Arabs in the United States, where they're coming from, their history, the language, the religions. When you talk about Arabs, the majority of Arabs are, what's the religion of the Arab world? Okay, that's, what did you say? Islam. But that's not absolute. Half of Lebanese are Christians. 5% of the Palestinians background Catholics. 30% of the Egyptians are Coptic. So nothing absolute. Minorities of Baha'is, Druze, Christians, and even you might meet an Arab, tell you I'm Arab American, I'm from Morocco and I'm a Jew. Well, that's normal, am I right? So you have to understand the diversity of religions. And majority of Arabs in the United States are Christians, not Muslims. Majority of Arabs in the United States are Christians, not Muslims. Again, Arabs could be from a racial group in the United States, could be coming from 22 different origins, and those are examples. And I'm part of the Arabs under Palestinian. You could put me under race. That's something confusing in the United States. When you're coming from the Middle East or the Arab world, you talk about racial group. 20 years ago, when somebody tell me, what group are you under, racial or ethnic? I said, oh, I don't know, but I'm a Muslim. What that means in the Middle East, in the Arab world, what's your identity there? Your religion. Your color doesn't mean anything, or physical appearances. Your religion could be a Baha'i, a Muslim, a Jew, a Christian, Yazidi, and you name it. That's something to be aware of. See how many, in the US, I'm talking about the United States, Arabs in the US, see how many different racial and ethnic groups. See Ashurians and Chaldeans, they are Christian. And they're Iraqi. This number is different than these Iraqis, but these are Iraqis too, Christians. And majority of Arabs here in the United States are Lebanese, and majority of Arabs are Christians, not Muslims. But when you think, when somebody says I'm an Arab, automatically you consider him or her a Muslim. That's a myth in the US. No. Majority of Arabs in the United States, Christians, not Muslims. And this is the figure from the Zughbi International. That's in 2000, it's still the same. When it comes to religions, as I mentioned, remember, Arabs could be a Muslim, Christian, Catholic, Orthodox, Armenian, and so forth. Could be a Jew from Morocco, could be a Jew from Iraq, could be a Jew from Egypt, Baha'is from Syria or Egypt, and maybe you have to understand within Islam, Christianity, and other universal philosophies, there are many branches and sects. Arab Americans, you find them everywhere through the United States, but with certain distribution: Lebanese, Egyptian, Moroccans, you find them in Arizona, Syrians in Rhode Island, Palestinians, my category in California. I have huge family there, started from my uncle who immigrated in the 30s and up, and others. Iraqis in Michigan, California. Why? When they immigrate, that's where their family, a culture built on family and extended families, where you go either because of opportunity, or you follow your family. That's why you find Palestinians here and the Syrians there and Egyptians somewhere else. Why they ended in the US? Someone will tell you, I came from Iraq because of war. I came from Palestine because of 1948, dismantling of Palestine, kicking out of the Palestinians. Somebody want to join the family to work in the United States. A lot of Arabs established businesses in the US. We have a lot of refugees and asylees, and this moment especially, from Somalia, from Iraq, generally from the Middle East, everywhere else. Or some people in the United States under different categories, like researchers or scientists, or because of their qualifications and merit. You know, we have under immigration, if you have a unique merit, you want to bring it to the United States, the door is open to go through immigration papers. We have to remember, could be when you interact with Arabs here in the United States, they might own visas, just temporary in the US, or they might be resident. What's residency? I say I'm a resident of the US. Legally, for how long legally in the US? No, my friend, that is nothing what I want. There is nothing immigration laws we have to go through. 10 years legally, I can renew it. Yeah, I have full right except voting. I'm not American citizen, I'm a resident, still having other citizenship. Or naturalized American. What that mean, naturalized American? You find Arab naturalized and Arab like you, they are not naturalized. What naturalization? I am a naturalized American. What that means? I immigrated to the United States, gained my residency through work, and then been naturalized. Naturalized to confirm my citizenship from being a Palestinian. I don't have a state. I came from war zone, to being American, though. I have full rights like any other American, except, oh, I can't vote, my friend. I can't be a president of the United States. I can't be even a vice president of them. Who cares about that at this point when you want to go somewhere? Yes, that's the difference between naturalized American and American born on American soil. Education for Arabs, when you interact them, they are very highly educated in the United States. Majority has at least a high school degree and more than that. Now, Muslims. Most Arabs are Muslims. 22 different countries, majority Muslims, but nothing absolute. I remember that I said within the Arabs, you find Baha'is, you find atheists, you find a Jew, you find a Christian, and you find, what else? We have religions, Yazidi, Druze, a lot of ethnic minorities religions. Look at the statement. Most of Arabs, generally, most Arabs are Muslims. I hope do we have a map somewhere? Okay, let's go to the map. Let's go to the first map about the Middle East. Most Arabs, the countries in red, are Muslims. But not all Muslims are Arabs. What that means? Most Muslims are Arabs. Most Arabs are Muslims, am I right? Okay, 22 countries, majority Muslims, with exceptions, nothing absolute, of course. But not all Muslims are Arabs. When we talk about Islam, you think of the Arabs only, but that's stereotype. That's not true. Majority of Muslims are not Arabs. 85% of worldwide Muslims are not Arabs. They are from Republic of Indonesia. Let me go back, let me enlarge because when you interact with people from the Middle East, especially with Arabs, you think Muslims, but that's need to be clarified. Majority of these countries, Arab countries, are Muslims with exceptions. Remember, huge exceptions. But most Muslims from Indonesia, from Pakistan, Afghanistan, from Iran, from Turkey, these are not Arabs, these are Asians. Am I right? So worldwide Muslim, 85% of Muslims worldwide are not Arabs. We are Asians. But we mix a lot, am I right? And the largest Muslim country would be the Republic of Indonesia, 300 million followers. And we have to remember Turkish, majority Muslims, but they are Asians. Iranese Muslims are Asians, they are not Arabs. But we mix a lot with Arabs in the US. That's the need for to understand those differences when you interact. When you interact with Arabs or Muslims. The statement is clear for your interaction? Okay. Now, about Islam. Islam, what is Islam? Muslim Americans, religious group. Islam is a religion. A Muslim is the follower of Islam. Worldwide, 1.6 billion Muslims, second largest to Christianity. It's worldwide phenomena. See those geographic differentiation, being a Muslim, being an Arab is two different categories. Two major sects, Sunni and Shias. The division, sometimes when you interact with a Sunni or a Shia, you find some tension. This is the major tension between Sunnis and Shias. The political division after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. Sunnis follows the teachings of the Quran, the practices of the Prophet, and his words. The Shias, same, but they add to the Quran and to the Sunnah and the Hadith, they add the Prophet Muhammad's cousin Ali to the teachings. That's the mere division between Sunnis and Shias. And Shias, they always think that the Imam or the president of Muslim world should be from the Ali's siblings up to now. For the Sunnis, it doesn't matter. It's political division after the Prophet Muhammad, nothing else. But when things become political, it's too much tension behind it. Scripture for the Muslims, the Quran, the first Sharia laws. Sharia laws is the way of life. If Sharia laws how to pray, what to eat, what to wear, what to talk, what's your children, everything is a Sharia laws in the Islamic countries. And some countries it's the constitution. That sometimes when people immigrate here, either Arabs or Muslims, they don't differentiate between our understanding the separation between state and church. State and church in the Muslim country is the same. They don't separate. Here we separate. Sometimes you find when you interact with immigrants or people from the Arab world or the Muslim world, why that lump religion with culture? Because that's how they grew up. Religion and culture are the same. Here we separate. Am I right? Something to be understood about those coming from those countries. Hadith is the Prophet words, Sunnah practices. These are the most important thing for Muslims when they deal with others. What is Islam? Quickly. Islam, the theory of Islam, one God, the angels, same in the Bible, the books, the Torah, the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the prophets. Adam is the first one, Muhammad is the last. Day of the last, the day of judgment. Everything you do it by your free will. Nobody forces you to do. That's the theory of Islam. Practice in prayers, in believing in one God, one prophet. Prayers 5 times to the direction of Mecca. Fasting, Ramadan. If you have a Muslim friend, if you want to interact with him, during Ramadan, we'll tell you I don't eat from sunrise to sunset 30 days. Zakah, 2.5 of what you have is not yours. And the trek to Mecca when possibility. It's the same what Abraham did 5,000 years ago. You have to understand of the diversity of Muslims in the United States. We have Muslims from the Middle East, Arab included, from Asia, from Europe, from Russia, from everywhere. Majority of Muslims in the United States are of the African Americans, even not from the Arab world. Majority of Muslims in the US, African Americans. Then from Asia, then from the Arab world, then converts and others. Why Mecca? Somebody will tell you, a friend, I want to go to Mecca someday. What's in Mecca? Mecca is the center of Islam. It's where the first Kaaba, where is the first mosque being built by Adam and Eve, rebuilt by Abraham and his son after the great flood, according to the Quran. Saudi Arabia is Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Let me sometimes explain. Where is Mecca? Do you see Mecca? This is Mecca, Saudi Arabia, center of Islam. Where is the Kaaba? This is the Kaaba, the first mosque built by Adam and Eve, rebuilt by Abraham after the great flood. It's representation of monotheism. Same as Christianity and Islam, one God to believe in. This is the second in line, the most important city, Medina, where Prophet Muhammad was buried for Muslims, and the Dome of the Rock, the third holiest city for Muslims, Jerusalem, in Jerusalem. Now, that's why I need you to pay attention more and more. When you stereotype an Arab or a Muslim, what you came to your mind from the media, from the political situation sometimes in certain areas, that Arabs are terrorists, that came, if you study the history of stereotypes in the United States, you have to go back from the Palestinian-Israeli conflict in 1948. After World War II, we have started to have critical views about Arabs and Muslims because of the creation of a state Israel. And here in the US, we support the state, while the Arabs and Muslims support the Palestinians. That's where these images start to pop in our media and our social life. As a terrorism, savages, Arabs and Muslims, you have to remember, Arabs 300 millions worldwide, Muslims 1.6 million. So abuse of women, yeah, you might cite cultural practices, but you can't generalize for everyone that he could possibility of abusing his wife or any woman. Desert dwellers because of heat, Orientalism, all of the Arabs and Muslims belong to the land of the East, which is, that's not true. Polygamists, every Arab, every Muslim has 4 wives or 7 wives, or I don't know how many wives, and they are very wealthy. Someone is telling me oil is there, but you find oil in some areas. You're not going to find it in most of the areas in the Middle East. These are the stereotypes. The Arabs and Muslims, they are aware of these stereotypes. So when you interact with somebody, you have to be careful with your cross-cultural experiences with each other. Sometimes that's offensive to some. With your interaction, and a Middle Easterner, or especially for the females, they do cover the whole body. Men too, but different clothing. Like for the women, has to cover the whole body. Men put the same, especially from navel to knee, but sometimes the whole body too. So hijab means modesty and covering. And if you go to the Middle East, how many of you been in the Middle East somewhere? How you see people there? They are, the women, what they do, cover. Where you been exactly? Which country?
I've been to Kuwait, Iraq.
Kuwait, Iraq. The women will wear the chador, which is the black, or somehow, you know, more European style, but rarely. But you find both ways. But the general norms, the people will dress from their point of view, modesty. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Extremism is another, but here in the West, we have some critical views about dressing or covering. That's kind of abuse or inferiority for women. But for them, that's modesty and body respect, nothing else. Also stereotype about extremism, racial profiling, and Islamophobia, the new trend. What's Islamophobia? Because of the media, because of the political situation in the Middle East, we start having fear from every Arab or Muslim or anyone from the Middle East, from their cultures, practices, maybe lifestyles. That's Islamophobia. So you have to understand when you interact with anyone from the Middle East, generally, there will be religious influences to their lifestyles, cultural influences, gender sensitivity. My friend, I don't know if you have training before you go to Kuwait. Can you dare to hug any female there? Part of the greeting style we have. That's very taboo here. There, yes. But sometimes, yeah, it's okay. If you go to Lebanon or Syria, it's different. But in some places, you have to understand gender sensitivity. You don't shake a hand, the opposite sex, not female to female. It's female to male. These opposite sex, especially in handshakes and greasing and hug. My first cultural shock, assimilation in the United States, when I have to hug my professor. That's not part of how we grew up. You don't get close from the opposite and give him a hug. But here I have, when you assimilate in the United States, you have to do it. But it was, why it's easy for a man to come and hug me, even if he's want to greet me. Because I grew up in that culture, I didn't see the other culture practices. That's the norms, and that's not the norms in some cultures. Hugs and kisses with opposite sex, you have to be careful. Nothing absolute though, but you have to be careful. Quietness, very shy sometimes. Eye contact. When you look in the eye, that's sometimes hard. I assimilate it now. I look in your eyes. See, I keep looking. But if you go to the Middle East, sometimes when your eyes come to the female, automatically she will change her. Or even the man sometimes. That's part of the respect. I'm sorry, I'm respecting that, but that's assimilation within the mainstream. The eye contact, sometimes people won't look, and that's insult. So be careful. Sometimes somebody look at you and change their eyes. Say, what's wrong with you? Why they don't have look in my face? What's wrong with me? But that's the norms there. That's part of the respect. If they don't keep looking in your eyes, that's respect, especially with the opposite sex too. Cultural shock. Like example, too much, we have freedoms, they don't have their freedoms there. Age, respect with age, like for me, when I go back and go to see my grandparents, I don't keep looking in their eyes. I will let them sit before me. I will listen to them, to what they need, because they have the wisdom more than me. That's part of the culture. Collective and individuality. Here in the United States, your individuality, you do your own things but individually. Now I have example for him here. I understand the cultural differences. When I have sometimes Saudi students, one of them want to have a complaint, all of them, they come to my office. I understand the culture. That's everybody's business. But here, that's not everybody's business. That's your or her business. But you have to understand that culture, we do things in families, in groups. Individuality is kind of, you have to think about when you interact with people from that particular. But remember, assimilation and acculturation. When people move to here, they have to assimilate in many things. But sometimes it's hard. Assimilation takes sometimes 10 years, 30 years, a generation. It depends. For the halal food, what's halal food? You've been in Kuwait or in Iraq. What's halal food? What's kosher food?
Kosher food?
Yes, kosher food, same clothes like halal food. What's halal food? Sheep or sheep? Sheep. Oh, sheep is halal food, but not pork. Okay, it's like kosher, pork-free food. Pork-free food, halal, and no blood in the food. If you want to invite a friend to your house, if he's practicing Muslim or even practicing Orthodox Jew, meat shouldn't be in your steak when you offer that steak. So it should be well done, my friend, okay? That's one of the, no blood, no pork. Relationship and trust. If you want to do business or anything with an Arab or a Middle Eastern, being a friend and building friendship and drinking coffee, visiting their houses, that's most important than anything else when you deal with business. Coffee or tea, you have to drink. Coffee is their honor and dignity. If you visit their houses, you have to drink coffee or tea. If you don't, just ask for water. Family values. My name is, you will be shocked, my name here, Kholoud Al-Qubbaj. See what's my name when I go to the Middle East. Kholoud, see my family. Ibrahim, Muhammad, Hussein, Uthman. See how many great-great-great-grandparents in my birth certificate? That's my first name here, Kholoud, and that's my name, Al-Qubbaj. But my father, my great-grandfather, should be in my name. That's who I am there. And it's been memorized through society, who I am. If I forgot, they will remind me who is my great, that society. So we are family-oriented, even with our names, with our dignity, and your family is who you are for good. Here in the US, my name is Kholoud Al-Qubbaj with assimilation. But there, your name, your great-grandparents, it's in your birth certificate, in your passport. That's who you are. Huge emphasis in family and extended families, even in your name. That's what I want to say, even in your name. If you have an Arab or a Muslim friend, you have to be careful with the Fridays. It's their holidays. It will tell you, hey, I need to quit that meeting because I need to go to Friday prayers. It's generally known prayers. I mentioned that for assimilation and acculturation. We know what's assimilation with the mainstream Americans, but acculturation, you keep a part of your heritage, like your religion, your language, or with a combination sometimes with your US citizenship, either if you are an Arab or a Muslim. Punctuality. Do you have an experience with punctuality in the Arab world? If I tell you I will meet you at 9, maybe I will come at 1. But that's normal. That's part of the norms. Here in the United States, I will be kicked out of the office. I will lose my job. I will be given many warnings. Am I right? 9 sharp, not 1 o'clock. But we have fluid times. Gifts, here considered like a bribe, takes me to the court. But in the Arab world, that's for respect, a cultural norm to build relationships and trust. So if that's part of the norms. Of course, language barriers for Arabs here, especially the immigrants. You have to understand the language barrier when they immigrate. Okay, no more. You have questions now. Questions about Arabs, Muslims, lifestyles? Yes?
Would you, in 1 or 2 sentences, define what is an Arab?
An Arab. Yes, let me go back to that map. An Arab, any of inhabitants in these 22 countries in the Middle East that speak Arabic. I'm an Arab. I came from the Holy Land or Holy Land, Jerusalem. I speak Arabic. I'm an Arab.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I was wondering what made you end up here at SUU. Why did you come to SUU?
Good question. When I immigrated in the early 90s, I got engaged to Dr. Samha. He's in chemistry department. He knows my dad. He was his English high school teacher. He came to visit his English high school teacher. Where I get to know him. We engaged. Then we got married. Then I have to move to Las Cruces in New Mexico, where he was finishing his PhD. We moved, we settled there. I finished my degree, he finished his PhD and my PhD, have 3 children. We got full-time employment, tenure track position. We moved to SUU. That's how I ended. I moved to Utah in 2000. Yes. Yes.
What common ground do you see between American culture and Middle Eastern culture? I mean, I know you mentioned education, and I think that's something that we have in common, but what other things do you think are similar?
Similarity with the globalization will be the language. Especially the Middle East was colonized by the British Empire up to the World War II. A lot of interaction with clothing, education, language, food, beside their own traditions. Sometimes you will find like the most of the American lifestyles could be found there, mixed with their traditional norms at the same time. That's how I see it, yes. When I go there, they want the American styles, clothing. I have 3 sisters and I have 2 brothers. And Hussein have 7 sisters. They want what we have. With the globalization, they look what we have here. And commonality, I can use my dollar here and I can use it there. That's what came to my mind right now with the similarities. And a lot of like education, language, some norms, and could be with the social media, the word getting smaller and smaller, you don't see the difference between here and there. Yes?
Is there anything you miss most about kind of being here in Utah, like from anything else, like anything like you really miss?
From back home, I was there last August. Spices. I can't bring it here though. But I go to Las Vegas to buy cardamom spice, which is rarely you find it in the U.S. I cook with it my rice and my chicken, so I have to buy it from Las Vegas. Anything else, it's the same. I don't feel that much difference. Here, more peace. If you hear the news what's happening in Jerusalem, forget it. Yeah, that's another thing to mention. Peaceful life here. Where is your hard question? You threatened me when I came back with the hard questions. You got me? Okay. If I can answer it for you, though, go ahead.
The question I have is, I have a bunch of them, but I was just reading bits and pieces of a book that you wrote, and you said that the exchange of cultural traits results in the individual becoming more Anglo. And so I guess my question is this a acceptance of the new culture, or is it a coping skill or survival skill? And of course, in order to pass your daughter's class, I have to ask, are you preventing your children from being Anglo?
If I mentioned assimilation and acculturation. We all assimilated in the Anglo culture, you and myself. What's Anglo? What's your definition of Anglo? The Irish has to be, the Anglo culture is the British culture, the Anglo-Saxon culture. They are the original pioneer to the United States. So all immigrants, either the Italian, the Irish, the Muslims, the Arabs, we all acculturated in that culture to be considered mainstream Americans. So it's not me and you, it's all of us assimilated. We speak English. We have a lot of styles of being from that culture, the religion, Christianity. Though, since the 60s and up, we have acculturation and pluralism in the United States. We have the mainstream American and we have pluralism. That's what the United States is all about, who you are as American. I could speak English, all of us has to speak English. That's part of the assimilation. But at the same time, you could be a Muslim, you could be a Hindu, you could be a Jew, or that's you retain part of your heritage. So the Anglos, we all assimilated in Anglos somehow, especially the Italians, the Germans, the Europeans. And here, my children, their first language is Arabic, is English. Second language is Arabic, but they struggle. But they assimilated. If you immigrate to the United States, somehow you have to assimilate with the Anglo culture, especially the language. Though this is, I don't know where I wrote this statement, or could be from my edited book. You read it. Which book you've been reading?
Well, it was. I had it written down somewhere, and it was a book you.
Maybe I used, not I edited or something.
I thought you maybe you endorsed it. I don't know. It was,
Could be.
It was on acculturation.
Yes, that was my dissertation. When we moved to the United States, we have to assimilate in some Anglo aspects, especially the language. And we have immigrants, they fully assimilated in the Anglo culture, and some immigrants, they retain part of their heritage. Yes, I remember that now, yes. And we all assimilated somehow in the, what we call it now, mainstream American culture.
So it's neither survival or coping, it's just something you have to do.
Yes, and if you want to survive, you have to speak English. But at the same time, that was referring to the languages at the schools, that sometimes those immigrants coming from Arab background, we have to understand differences between English, especially the new immigrants, ESL program and Arabic language as English, how they formulate their mentality. When you think in Arabic language, different than the way you use the English, two ways of cultural differences. Did I see a hand from here, my friend? Did I see your?
I was just wondering, you said that you came to America because of the war, right?
Joining the family, my husband. But I came from turmoil area, yes.
So was it like, were you glad to learn a new culture and work on that, or were you against it, and why?
No, I love the new culture. I came here to the United States. I finished my bachelor degree in English language and literature from one of the universities back home. When I came here, it was a merit for me to go on with my life. I have my family, my husband, my 3 children, Las Cruces, where I seek my educational degree in curriculum instruction and bilingual education, and finished my PhD. And since then, I've been here in the States about 23 years. I never complain about being in the United States. So sometimes, because you are from the Middle East, you hear the media will hear some stereotypes. But other than that, you have the freedoms, you go on with your life. And wherever you live, it's your home. Now, if you move to France, you have to live like a French, it's your home. If you're in the US, you have to live like American, it's home. Wherever you go, it's home. That's how the way you live. It's not, this is, I like this. Why you have to move to a country you don't like until you've been forced? I wasn't forced to move here. I came with my free will here. And remember, with the globalization, and you look at the most favorable place for immigrants, it's the US. If you study migration, worldwide migration, United States has the hugest influx for the best place to be. Because of the freedoms, maybe the Constitution, maybe peaceful place, but most of people, when they move to the United States, they want to improve their economic situations. Yes. Yes.
Have your family relationships changed since coming to the culture, or is it kind of
They miss me a lot. I can go, they can't come. They want me to teach my children Arabic, not to lose everything. For them, my grandparents or my parents, they already passed. But I know what's in their mind. They want always to be attached, because we are a family culture and family-oriented culture. They always want to be us attached, to be in connection. But you know, when my uncle came in the 40s and those came in the 50s, they've been disconnected. No cell phones, nothing. But my days are different. I can call my mom, my grandparents in a minute. That will make it easier for us. It's just to be close. Anyhow, what ways? Could be a phone, could be through Skype, could be, but they want always to be in contact, because that's the psychology. You have to be close from us, and you have to keep to speak in Arabic, because sometimes when I speak to them, I use English words. They don't understand that much English, so I use Arabic. So because I've been here sometimes 23 years, you talk 2 languages and you don't feel it. Sometimes in my classes, talking to my students look at me. Then I realize I use both languages at the same time. So the language, and they want to be close to them always, to keep call. How are we doing, and what's going on? How is my children, and what they want to study, this and that. Close-knit relationships, which is their right as a family. Especially like my grand aunts, uncles still alive. I have friends there. When I go to visit them, it's easy to see them, but they can't come and see. Though with the social media and technology, it's easier to communicate these days. Any other question or questions? Yes.
Do you feel like women have a different cultural role in an Arabic country versus in the USA?
Especially in my culture, or generally?
Well, generally.
Generally.
Yeah.
Let me tell you 2 things about women in the Arab country. You will find, you have to understand the diversity of Arabic families. some of them tribal, some of them urban, some of them live in the cities. When it's a tribal, kind of Gulf countries, it's hard for a woman to have effective gender rules in the society. But if you look at the other half, like those living in cities and urbans, they are most educated and very highly educated. So they have a good gender rules in the society if they come in. Though you have to find some cultural practices that men are the breadwinner of the family, not the female. So they put emphasis on giving financial, economic support for the male more than the females. So you find many different ways. Tribal, with no rules. Urban, with rules you will like. But some families will tell you, hey, your brother is better, so he will support us, and to give a priorities. So you have to understand the diversity of females in the Middle East. Sometimes you have a female here, refugee in the U.S., have a higher degree. If you have a higher degree, if you immigrate to Canada and the United States, you can work. But if you don't have a degree, you have to immigrate to somewhere else. Your gender rules will be shaky, especially in Western countries. But that's in the Middle East. If you stay in the Middle East, it depends on your background as a female. You find women in parliament. You find women, they can go out of the house. Two different diversity views of females in the Arab world, and nothing perfect, especially with cultural practices. But don't put cultural practices as stereotype to generalize on all females there. You have to be careful. Different views. No more questions? Yes.
Okay, this is kind of just a personal question. I have neighbors back home, and they immigrated from somewhere, I don't know, I think it was, I can't remember, but they gave me a gift before I left, and I want to send them something. Do you, have any recommendations of what makes a good gift?
Where are they from? You tell me their background.
I think,
Palestinians, Syrians,
they're either Palestinian or Egyptian.
Egyptian.
One of those two. None of them are completely
Look, for a gift, it doesn't matter. You know what's a gift. Are they Muslim? Are they Muslims? Don't send everything except anything has a pork, anything has like depiction of Jesus as a God, but anything else, they will like it. Yes, just. But that doesn't mean they don't like Jesus. Jesus is their prophet. But anything that says he's the God, that's something, that they will say where to put that. I mean, Jesus is okay, but being a God, that's the taboos. But anything else you send, it doesn't matter. If they practice monk, don't send alcohol, anything with alcohol too. Cognac bottle. But if they are not practicing, send everything. Yes, be careful with their psychology. Yes.
What do you chant in your home country?
Peace. What change? To change there? If I want to change, what to change from back home? You know, I came from the conflict of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, where two cultures fighting over the same land. I will change for peace. I grew up in the war. I was born in the war, 1967 war. Grew up in the uprisings, and I never have that feeling there that wherever I move safely. Peace. That's what they need. Quiet life and peace, which is, they don't have it yet, since 1948, maybe before, within the British colonization. Peace. Yes? Yes, let me take you back to this one. These ones. That's the misconceptions about either Arabs or Middle Easterners or Muslims. These are the stereotypes. We need to change the stereotypes, because when you stereotype, what is a stereotype? Do you know what's a stereotype? A stereotype is assumption based on one experience, generalize it to all the group. When you want to stereotype Arabs, you're stereotyping 300 million worldwide. If you want to stereotype Muslims, 1.6 billion worldwide. So the stereotype is too much generalization about the whole group without taking their individual differences. The stereotype, and it's very killing when you are interact with people. They feel you look at them like a terrorist or a savages, where they want to, that's kind of insulting that will hinder the interact and the communication pretty well to the best. Clear? The stereotype. Many of those, these just examples. And you have to understand the diversity also with these people you are interacting. They come from diverse background in culturals and religious influences, where they coming from and so forth. Questions? Yes, go ahead, yeah. Again, my friend. By education, by learning. If you want to interact with someone, you have to understand that person pretty well, where they coming from, the taboos in that culture, what they eat, what that means, and those differences and similarities. We are humans. We are similar. If we are different, that's uniqueness comes from the culture we interact with. So to understand education and knowledge, ignorance is the first man enemy. Am I right? Education, awareness, consciousness of who I'm interacting with. If you are like from China or Korea, I need to understand the Korean culture, the taboos, where you're coming from, what you eat, how we can interact better, and what similarities, what differences, and so forth, so we can have good personal experiences and build the trust with our relationships. Knowledge and education. And the rule is similarities are more than differences, always. We are a lot similar than different. Questions? John is looking at you. Hey, any other question? That means he loves you guys. That's love. It is love. Love and getting more knowledge. But that's the best.
I'm sure, did you get all your 5 questions answered?
Are you sure?
Did you feel like pressure to conform to American culture when you moved here like a long time ago, or did you just kind of?
No, there is no pressure to conform, because if you look, who are the Americans? We're coming from different backgrounds. We come from different religions. And the beauty of the United States, you have separation between your state and church. You live your religion and interact with people freely, am I right? You don't have to impose your religion on somebody else, and you don't have to be religious. That's something, and if you want to speak your native language with your family, but you can speak English with both here and outside. So that situation you're talking about in the U.S. was harder before the 60s, where assimilation is the prominent rule in the United States. But after the 60s, when we have the civil rights liberties for women, for African Americans and other minorities, where the pluralistic, be whatever you want to be under what is an American. So if you want to define what is American, what's American, you have nothing called you, hey, you have to be like here. But something in the United States that you have to learn English to survive. That doesn't mean you have to shed your original or native language. Am I right? We have freedom of religions, and we have a lot of rights being guaranteed by the Constitution. So if you want to live here, be whatever. We have some laws, but I don't see any contradictions between coming to the United States and you're forced to do something. You have to. I never see that unless that's, against the law sometimes. And we have bilingual education. We have multicultural education in the trend in the U.S. And we have some places that Spanish is first language more than English, and you have to use Spanish and English. You have a lot of those rights. To conform, that's harsh word now. To acculturate, it will be easy way. Who you are, be whatever you want. Remember, acculturation and assimilation. The Constitution and those rights in the Constitution. You have a lot of rights.